In the opening cutscene, a captain and a soldier are having a conversation. They're discussing the crash of a cargo ship and its wreckage on the planet in front of them. From their dialogue, we learn that there's no human survivors left. The only thing left is the hostile environment and the creatures that remain. The soldier is sent into the crash site to investigate with no knowledge of the planet he's landing on. His instructions are to locate and use the teleporters on each level. In each stage, the player must kill to survive and spend money on opening cargo to adapt to the increasingly hostile monsters. Once a teleporter is located, a larger enemy can be summoned, attempting to stop us from progressing further. If we survive this fight, we then have to continue into the second, the third, and the fourth stages as enemies get harder and harder. This is stage 5. Bosses we saw previously are normal here, and instead of one teleporter, there's two. Each has a different purpose, but to defeat the game, we have to use the primordial one. This level seems easy, but keep in mind, if it wasn't for all the upgrades unlocked, this level would be impossible. It almost seems too easy until you stay long enough to see the boss fight. After activation of the teleporter, the largest boss yet appears, in our case, a being called the Grandparent. Seeming to be the father of the parent boss, it's capable of throwing asteroids, calling upon the power of a star, and controlling gravity. After pressing on and defeating the Grandparent, it's finally time to advance to the final level. The teleporter of the 5th stage brought us somewhere different. We're on the moon, the last stand of the final enemy we need to kill. One thing to notice is how different the enemies are on this level. Previously, we battled creatures, but these seem to be machines. This information will be important to the lore section of the video. Let me introduce you to our final boss. His name is Mithrix, the King of Nothing. A fierce battle begins as he charges us head on. He is tough and capable of dealing damage that can instantly kill you if you're not careful. I would describe him as a god. Like the Greek gods of our universe, he's not all-powerful, but he has a sense of superiority. He calls the player weak and frail. After beating Mithrix, he calls out to his brother before collapsing. The moon becomes unstable, and we have to leave or die. The game has been won, but at what cost? With all the new powers we acquired, are we still really human? Keep in mind the lore is unfinished and there's some questions that I can't answer, but the central idea is still clear and we'll just be going over the main plot. Thousands of years ago, two beings came into existence. There was Mithrix, the person we just beat, and there was Providence, the main enemy from the first game. These beings are not ordinary, they're almost like gods. Their lifespans are much longer than ours, and they possess the ability to understand the universe more than we ever will. Providence soon began taking care of the weak, hence his name, Bulwark of the Weak. along with creatures that were saved from extinction like the Lemurians. He kept them all on the planet, safe from harm, and this angered his brother. Mithrix began experimenting with creation himself, and made the bodyguards we see on the moon, and several others on the planet. One day, a higher life form visited them who was able to travel space and left a gift. What the gift was is unknown for certain, but this made the brothers want to leave their planet and explore the unknown. They created the teleporters we see in the game from level to level, perfecting their new machine until they could aim it at the moon. Once the lunar teleporter was created, Mithrix argued with his brother about his feelings for lesser life forms. He believed that Providence was wasting time on creatures that were so inferior. Mithrix then said to his brother that he would be waiting on the moon and travels there. Providence, knowing that Mithrix would soon take action against the life he protects, cuts off the teleporter and traps his brother on the moon. An unknown time later, at the start of the first game, Providence attacks an interstellar cargo ship called the Contact Light. As a protector, we can only infer his intentions were to protect the planet. The ship crashes, leaving many survivors that were unable to survive long term and leave many abandoned settlements we see in the second game. The main character then travels through the teleporters to find Providence and defeat him. In Risk of Rain 2, a repurposed cargo ship is sent off led by Captain, a playable character to investigate and explore the planet. The captain is said to have some familiarity with the events in Risk of Rain 1, and remembers the name of the ship, Contact Light. I'm not sure his relation to the events of the first game, and I don't want to assume anything. The captain orders the soldier, in this case the main character, to be sent down to the planet, and the gameplay from the first part of the video occurs. Let's talk about hidden levels. First, the Glided Coast. Every level has a random choice of spawning a golden altar, but it's extremely rare. This altar costs a ton of gold and requires the player to defeat tons of enemies to afford it. After activation, a portal is set to spawn after the teleporter event and gives the player the chance to enter it. This dimension has one boss called the Aurelian Knight. He's invincible at first, and the player has to activate 7 pillars by clicking on them to damage it. After defeating this boss and all his minions, you're able to earn the money back you paid to get here. The Bulwarks Ambry is a dimension with a portal below stage 5. By rewriting a pattern on the ground correctly, a portal opens to the dimension. This dimension doesn't really have a boss, but tons of smaller enemies. In order to defeat this level, you must survive and collect keys. You then bring these keys to an orb in the center and interact with it to deposit. The only way to damage the orb is by depositing enough keys to kill it. Once defeated, the orb will drop loot and allow you to return to stage 5. Next, my personal favorite is the Bazaar Between Time, a dimension where time isn't moving. This dimension requires the activation of a new altar by paying a lunar coin. Lunar coins are rare drops from enemies that can be used as currency in the Bazaar shop. After activation, a portal will appear after the teleporter event. Taking this portal brings you to the new dimension right outside the Newt's shop. The Newt is a time-altering shopkeeper, a godly being just like Mithrix and Providence, but peaceful. He offers the player some of the best items in the game, which can alter gameplay drastically. There's a hidden dimension in the Bazaar Between Time itself, called the Void Fields. If you're already in the Bazaar Between Time, it only requires some parkour. Simply by falling to the bottom of the great pit you spawn next to, you find the Null Portal, which brings you to the Void Fields. This is a new dimension which forces you to stay in small air bubbles to stay alive, and leaving will slowly damage you. By defeating the enemies that attack you and staying in the air bubbles, you power cell vents. If all 9 cell vents in the dimension are charged, you unlock Acrid, a playable character. To get to the Moment Fractured dimension, you have to take an alternate teleporter at stage 5. We talked about the Moon teleporter earlier, but this is a teleporter which brings you to the beginning of stage 1. After recompleting stage 1 and 2, you return to stage 3, where you'll find a new portal after the teleporter event, which brings you to the dimension. This dimension only has one structure, the obelisk. This obelisk, if interacted with, kills you and unlocks the mercenary character. Although, if you have the Beers of Fealty item in your inventory, you're brought to the final dimension of the game, called a moment whole. The final dimension is completely white and contains one of 4 twisted scavengers. After battling and defeating this boss, you will earn 10 lunar coins. Soon after collecting your loot, your screen will fade and you will die. In the end, Risk of Rain 2 is a phenomenal game. Shout out to all the developers whose creativity made the game what it is. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this. I'm Atalanos, and see you later.